I just have to ask, what in the world was the prosecution thinking when it hired Shannon Burgess? Hi, Tony DeWitt here. I'm a Missouri appellate attorney, retired, and I bring you a fresh perspective on the law without offering any legal advice. So pull up a chair. This is what we're discussing today. Imagine that your child has a brain tumor. It's a small brain tumor, and it's not in a particularly bad part of the brain, but it's a brain tumor. And you can't get in to see the neurosurgeon quickly, and somebody comes up to you and tells you, I have been pursuing a medical degree for the last 17 years. I haven't got there yet, but man, I've got a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge. I'm really certain I can get in there and get that thing out of there, and your child will be just fine. And by the way, I'm going to charge you the same amount as the neurosurgeon. It's if that's okay. Do you walk or run away from that person? Personally, me, I would be running because you don't hire somebody without the requisite degrees to do things that involve life or death work. And make no mistake about it, being an expert in the Karen Reed case is effectively doing life or death work because you are putting her life, her freedom, forever in jeopardy by virtue of what you're doing. Now imagine you are Hank Brennan. You are getting ready to try a case just a few miles south and west of Boston. And Boston is pretty much your stomping grounds, and indeed that's where John O'Keefe was a police officer. Gosh, are there any places in or around Boston where you might find really great technical experts? Maybe the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, directly across the Charles River from Boston and Cambridge? Maybe Harvard? There would seem to be quite a quite a glut of really smart people in that area that you could turn to have them go through and do some of this analysis for you. Why is he getting bargain basement experts? I have to tell you that in 30 years of practicing law, I have never seen someone with an associate's degree and someone who has been pursuing a mere bachelor's degree for 17 years be certified as an expert in anything. The idea that he has some technical knowledge is, in many ways, well, it's just made a lie of by virtue of the way that he has conducted himself during the course of his cross examination and in some of his answers. At one point, he took apart the infotainment system in Karen Reed's Lexus, and he wasn't able to get it back together. Mr. Alessi asked him this.
I want to cover a basic question. Do you have any citation to any scientific literature where specifically what you did on this Lexus model has ever done before? Has it ever been done before?
No, not on this specific model, which is why we did the exemplar testing.
Right. So there's no scientific literature that states that the methodology that you used with this Lexus model is an appropriate methodology at all, correct?
There is literature that addresses the methodology in other ways, but not specific to this Lexus, correct?
There's no literature at all stating that the methodology that you used for this Lexus is the appropriate methodology to use for this Lexus model, correct?
There is no literature about this appropriate Lexus model, correct?
He admitted there is no scientific basis for what he did. That ought to render the opinion inadmissible. But of course, it's already been heard. So at the end of this, he ought to make a motion to strike that expert and all of his testimony because it has no scientific basis, at least as to that part of it. And I hope that that's exactly what they will wind up doing. Now, in this next clip, I again find it somewhat funny that the witness is trying to run away from the questioner. He is asked about whether he's familiar with the other expert, Mr. Whifflin. And when they ask him this question, he says, "I'm familiar with the name." So Alessi goes one step further and asks him, "Are you familiar with his work?" He runs from that question too. Watch how Alessi uses that to impeach his opinions.
You say you're familiar with the name. Are you more than familiar with his name? Are you familiar with his work?
I'm familiar with his report in this case, yes.
So you're familiar with his work if you're familiar with his report, correct?
Correct.
Were you given do you know that Mr. Whiffin has testified in this trial?
No, I do not.
And with regard to Mr. Whiffin's report, did you read it?
Yes, I did read his report.
And that would be of interest to you, correct? That's why you read it?
Correct.
Because Mr. Whiffin's report, and are we talking about Mr. Whiffin's January 2025 report or his March 2025 report? Are you aware there's two of them?
No, I'm not.
You know which one you're referring to?
That would be the January report.
So the January 2025 report, are you aware that there's just a couple minor differences between the two reports, or you're just not aware?
I'm not aware of either way.
Assume there's very minor differences with the reports. Mr. Whiffin's reports contain information and some detailed, they're long reports, right?
Yes, they are.
So Mr. Whiffin's report contains information about the cell phone of Mr. O'Keefe, correct?
Correct.
It contains information about the location data in Mr. O'Keefe's phone, correct?
Correct.
It contains information about the phone calls in Mr. O'Keefe's report, correct?
Correct.
It contains information about the temperature of the battery in the iPhone of Mr. O'Keefe, right?
Correct.
It has some timelines in that report, correct?
Correct.
And those timelines have very specific events that are represented in the data from Mr. O'Keefe's cell phone, correct?
Correct.
As a matter of fact, it's got location data and times that you have used in your report and PowerPoint presentation here, correct?
Correct.
So one of the reasons I wasn't panicking, like some people were, about the fact that these aperture experts were going to be able to testify is because I knew that the cross-examination of them would be brutal over the topic of, when did you learn that you needed to do another look at this, and how did you learn about needing to do another look at this? And so Mr. Alessi is not taking the direct route. He's not asking the most relevant question first. He's sort of dancing around the outside of it. He's circling in basically to later go in for something like a kill shot. He is talking about the fact of the data that was obtained from the other expert and why was it necessary for you to do this report. I think it is tremendously illustrative of why this report was a creature that was indeed commissioned by Mr. Brennan. He has denied that, but I don't believe it. I don't believe his denial, and I believe that in some respects here it is absolutely true that he was commissioned, this expert was commissioned to do this second look, particularly after the opening statement laid bare the state's incompetence. So watch this clip and tell me what you think.
You testified on your direct that you have general knowledge about cell phones, correct?
Correct.
And you say you've got certifications with regard to cell phones, correct?
Correct.
And your certifications include being able to read Celebrite and apply the Celebrite tool, correct?
Correct.
And you have certifications that allow you to apply and utilize magnet forensics, like, for example, their Axiom program, correct?
Correct.
And you've done that in your career. You've applied those tools before this case, correct?
Correct.
And you've applied those tools after your work in this case. You apply them pretty much frequently, correct?
Correct.
So the tools, the databases in an iPhone, and all the location data, etc., that was all information you had and you knew and had FASO with back in January of 2025, correct?
Correct.
And you had access to the XQ Lite database because you had Mr. Whiffin's report, correct?
Correct. I had the report, yes.
You had the report. Do you recall on your direct testimony saying that one of the reasons that you did this supplemental report on May 8th was you got new information or more information about Mr. O'Keefe's cell phone?
Yes, correct.
You had that information through Mr. Whiffin's report back in January of 2025, didn't you, sir?
Correct. I had the report. I did not have the data.
Well, didn't Mr. Whiffin's report discuss location in a pretty detailed manner?
Yes, it did.
And didn't he use GPS location data in that report?
Yes, he did.
And you had that in January 4 months ago, correct?
Correct.
And you read it 4 months ago.
Correct.
Yet you still submitted a report on May 8th in the middle of this trial, correct?
Correct.
And now, after all of that, we get to the real heart of the matter here, and yet another reason why this report should be stricken, in that it certainly appears that Hank Brennan asked for this additional report, which he swore on a stack of Bibles that he didn't, and which the judge believed without any requirement that he demonstrate any proof of that, just assumed that he was telling the truth. And now she can no longer assume that because there is credible evidence that he did request the report. Watch this exchange.
So let's do the timeline on this. January 30th, 2025, you prepare your initial report, correct?
Correct.
In that initial report, you mentioned nothing about TextStream event 1162.1, correct?
Correct.
In that report, you mentioned nothing about TextStream event 1162.2, correct?
Correct.
The trial starts April 22nd, correct?
Correct.
Roughly.
Generally.
No, the trial in this case, this trial, about April 22nd, after the trial starts and after witnesses, of course, are appearing, you prepare another report, correct?
Correct.
And that's your May 8th report,
Correct.
right in the middle of this trial.
Correct.
And right in the middle of this trial, you enlarge the number for the 21 to 29 range. That's bigger than what it was in your first report, correct?
No, that is not correct.
Well, you changed the number, don't you?
No, I did not change the number.
Well, let's go back to see exactly what you did, sir.
Sure.
Let's start with the basics. You said on direct examination, sir, that you prepared your May 8th report on your own. Those were your words on your direct testimony, correct?
Correct.
I'm going to read the first line of your May 8th, 2025 report.
Okay.
Do you have it in front of you, sir?
I do, yes.
It starts, Dear Mr. Brennan. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
Pursuant to your request. That's the request you're referring to of Mr. Brennan, correct?
Correct.
I have completed an additional analysis concerning the above referenced matter. To formulate opinions, the following additional items were reviewed. This wasn't done on your initiative. You put in writing you did it at the request of Mr. Brennan. Which is it?
So that was on my own initiative. This is a holdover, so a copy and paste from my original report.
There are a great deal of temptations on both sides of the aisle in terms of stretching things a little bit, telling half truths, not being completely candid with the court, all of that. That's the kind of stuff that can get you disbarred. So while I'm at it, I should point out that as I went back to look at what I had just done, I saw that I had a big, what looks like a big black streak over here on this side of my face. And when you're looking at yourself in the camera, uh, you're actually not really looking at yourself. You're just making sure that there's something there that you're talking to. And I apparently cut myself shaving this morning, and I was bleeding and didn't know it. So I apologize for making it look like I had a dirty face. Actually, I guess it would be a dirty face over here. Anyway, the truth of the matter is that everybody makes mistakes. I made one yesterday thinking that Brian Higgins' testimony had come in during this second trial when I used trial testimony from the first trial. I don't know how I missed that, but obviously I did miss it, and I apologize for it. That's the kind of thing that happens when you get stuff off of YouTube and you use the search function without nailing down when something occurred. It did say day 17, it just was day 17 on the first trial. But like I said, it's not uncommon for experts to make minor technical errors, minor technical mistakes. And it's also not uncommon for them to come in and say, right off the bat in a deposition, I made an error in my report. Here's the error in my report, and here's how I'm fixing that error in my report. And you can question me about that if you'd like. Most honest experts will do that. This guy thought he could run 17 years of not having a bachelor's degree past defense attorneys who are well motivated, which indicates that he's not very bright. He has been pursuing a bachelor's degree for 17 years, and that's sort of like a 2-year-old toddler who has just learned to walk pursuing Usain Bolt. He can't possibly be really pursuing a bachelor's degree. I think he's just happy where he is and he's not making any additional inquiries. One of the things that I would have asked if I'd been cross-examining him is, what classes have you taken recently in college? What classes have you taken since 2010 in furtherance of your degree? So how long have you known that you're not going to get a degree in a discipline that they don't even have, in a degree program that they don't ever even have? One of the things that I thought was really interesting is that Mr. Alessi gave him more credit than he was due. He asked him about a general science and mathematics, and the guy had to correct him and say, no, it's general studies in business administration. Well, those of us who have gone to college know that there are a lot of people who can't get into the individual colleges. In my case, I got into the College of Law just fine. But the College of Math and Science at Auburn University has very high standards. The nursing program at Auburn University has very high standards. Same with Florida State and other institutions where that's the case. You have to have a certain GPA to get in. And if you don't, they don't kick you out of the university. They let you pursue a general studies degree. And for those who just decided that they wanted a really good background in life and in the arts and man and that sort of thing, a general studies degree is just fine. But if you're going to be a technical expert and claim that you're pursuing a bachelor's degree when you're not, that that's pretty mendacious. I'll say that. And I think that overall, this was a very, very poor showing. And I would hope that Aperture would remove him from its list of experts, because this guy has absolutely no business testifying in a court of law. And finally, getting to the essence of the thumbnail that I used for this video, don't you think it's kind of odd that we have all of these coincidences stacking up? First coincidence from this case or from this witness, oh, I just copied and pasted from my initial report. Well, if you didn't read your report before you sent it to remove that copy and pasted information that was incorrect, then you didn't do your job and you shouldn't be testifying as an expert because you're apt to wind up misleading the jury. Then there were all those butt dials from Jen McCabe, and nobody believes those were butt dials. In fact, there seemed to be a lot of butt dials in this case. And on my phone, in order to make a phone call, I have to use my thumbprint to get into my phone. I would imagine that they had to do the same thing on their phones. Therefore, I have a really hard time believing that those are butt dials. Then there was the little hair that could. The hair that supposedly has John O'Keefe's DNA, but actually it's mitochondrial DNA, so it could be anybody from his mother's side of the family. That they should not even have brought that into court. Everything that they're doing when it's cross-examined makes them look worse. It makes the state look like it's desperate to convict this woman on the flimsiest thread, no pun intended, of evidence. Then there's the, oh, we didn't see anything we need to go into the house for explanation for why they didn't search the Albert house. None of these things make sense. None of them make them look very good. And the other thing that I want to opine on here today is if you go and look on YouTube and you Google or you search for the Karen Reed trial, none of the people who are on LawTube are talking about what a great job the prosecution is doing. None of them. Everybody is talking about what a terrible job the prosecution's witnesses are doing and what a great job Karen Reed's defense team is doing in knocking them all down. At the end of the day, it's almost like the state isn't trying, or that they would prefer to rely on chicanery as opposed to evidence in getting this conviction. That's my take. That's my honest take on this case. And I know there are people out there. I've got one guy who keeps stalking me on the comments section telling me that my career is over. And dude, that ship sailed back in July when I retired. My career as a lawyer practicing law is pretty much over. But my career here is just starting, and I think I'm doing a pretty fair job, with the exception of that boneheaded move I made on Mr. Higgins' testimony, and I apologize again for that. I think that in this case, the prosecution has done a terrible job, and I think the jury has to be seeing that at this point.
That's what I have for you today. I hope you found it helpful, interesting, or maybe both. If there's a subject you'd like me to discuss, please feel free to send me an email at the address above. If you like what we do, please feel free to subscribe and come on back to the beach tomorrow. I release videos every weekday, weather and work permitting. If you have the opportunity today, do a kindness for your fellow man. It makes the world a better place, one kind act at a time. And now, YouTube has some suggestions for other videos of mine that you might like.